up dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wide variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. Good morning, gang. Lee Warner says, hello, everybody. It is past the happy before vernal equinox. It is also the day after St. Patrick's Day. So we have all kinds of festive things to celebrate, and welcome Ash's Antics to the conversation. We are live today in studio again, so we have all kinds of cool stuff. It is the first event of the year for the Caps team. We are headed down to Obscura Paracon this weekend, the 21st of March through the 22nd. 2 big days of all kinds of paranormal fun down in DeKalb, Illinois. Tickets are available at obscuraparacon.com. If you're tired of me saying it, don't worry. It's the last weekend of it. But hopefully we see you guys down there and can meet some of you guys in person. Myself and Ma will be down there, as long as a lot of other people, former guests on my show, I've heard are also going to be there in person, just kind of cruising around. So it'd be kind of a great event for that as well, other than the advertised guests. So fun. Coming up next week, excited, Pete Kelsey from Skinwalker Ranch and Expedition Bigfoot is our guest here live on the show. So if you guys have any questions for Pete Kelsey on LiDAR and all the cool stuff on Skinwalker Ranch, this one's going to be fun. Make sure you tune in live next Thursday. And then, guys, coming up, Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin. Myself, also Dean Bertram from the Untold Radio Network here is going to be there. So if you'd like to meet either of us, we'll both be at this event along with a ton of other great people, a lot of which, unfortunately, I have never heard of. So I'll have to meet some brand new people for this event, all kinds of things that we haven't gotten into for modalities. Awesome. And then, of course, guys, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Convention, Saturday, May 9th in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, with over 20 speakers and workshops, kicking off Friday afternoon with a kids' Bigfoot expedition at 5 p.m. daylight. It's myself, Chris McCurry from the CAPS team, Lauren Smith from Night Callers Radio, and Kelly Milner-Halls will be leading this expedition, explaining what to look for in the woods, getting kids all pumped up for a Bigfooting, and how to stay safe. So going to be a great expedition there. For the more daring, we also have a night Bigfoot expedition the same Friday, the 8th. It's myself, Chris, and Lauren. Will be joined by Jay Bachochin, Ken Gerhard, Larry Eisler, and Christina Bloom. Awesome. And then, guys, we head back down to Illinois to the Chicago Paranormal Convention, Saturday, June 13th in Countryside, Illinois. I'll be at the Brownsville Public Library that week following that on June 17th. That's a Wednesday night. Then we go to Potograph's Packerland Paranormal Convention. That's a lot of P's to say. September 26th in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And then we have the Rio Public Library in October and the Belleville Public Library in October. There you go. More on those as we get closer. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We are live. A lot of new chat members today. Thank you all for coming in here, Tyler and Steamboat, Texas. There you go. All right. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let us get to our guest for today. All right, guys, our guest for today is Mitch Goth. He has been a paranormal researcher since 2009. Since 2022, he has been the head writer and researcher for Haunted US. Through Haunted US, he has published over 200 articles about the history and ghost stories of America's haunted places. He has recently co-authored Haunted US's first paranormal travel guide, 30 Haunted Nights in Wisconsin. That's right, guys. Another fellow Wisconsinite joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mitch to the show. Mitch, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you for coming on today, man. So you're quite the adventurous fellow. Tell us a little bit about how you got interested in the paranormal to begin with, and then all over, traveling and researching all over the US.
Yeah. So it was kind of an interesting backwards way of getting into the paranormal. I was never someone who was a believer in ghosts early on in life. I didn't really tune into ghost hunters or ghost adventures when they were on. But initially what got me started in it was just happenstance. I moved in next door to a ghost hunter, someone who had been doing it for over a decade at that point. And they were a close friend of mine, and their entire family was ghost hunters. So they would go out with their family every weekend and go look for ghosts in this cemetery or this spooky place in southern Wisconsin. And one weekend they said, "Hey, would you like to come with?" And I thought, might be a nice way to spend a Saturday, one singular Saturday in 2009. And I ended up having just a blast. I had an amazing time on our little investigation that we did. And it just got me permanently interested in the paranormal and ghosts and hauntings. I never really knew what to do with all that passion. For a healthy decade and some change, I just kind of went out and did the work. I stopped by haunted places, did the investigations, recorded hours and hours and hours of audio to collect potential EVPs. But really, all I did with all of my information and my work is I just kept it for myself, because there wasn't really anything else I could think to do with it. But fast forward to 2022, I got involved with my now cohort in spookiness, Brandon Rugsy. He had a very interesting idea. We were both kind of rolling with the same paranormal group at the time, but he had an interesting idea that to create a website that was essentially a one-stop shop for information for people who like spooky places, people who want to go to a haunted place. You want one reliable location to get your history and your paranormal claims. And when I was coming up, the big website was the shadowlands.net. And I think it still exists out there. If you go to the shadowlands.net, I think that website is still alive. But I would spend hours and hours and hours, young me, on shadowlands.net, reading all these entries about haunted places, but they were always just one or two sentences for each location, and I always wanted more. And so when the time came to get involved with Haunted US, I decided that I was going to be that more, because I didn't really see many other people out there doing the sort of detailed, deep dive kind of work and publication yet. So I decided that if no one else was going to do the kind of output that I wanted to see, well, I can do it. And so I worked with Brandon to put together what makes a good deep dive article, how you balance the hauntings and the history. And we just got started. We hit the ground running. I'm always writing something new. He's always developing our website and photographing locations. And we're both always getting out to far reaches of the United States to collect content for our website and share all of the big spooky stories that are out there, because there are a lot.
Absolutely. So if you can tell us, where was the first place that you went?
Yeah. So the very first place, the place that sparked all of my interest, was unfortunately, it's not around anymore. They demolished it, but it was a place called the Manor in Beloit, Wisconsin. And it was for a very long time a restaurant and bar. It was someone's house way, way back when, in the early 1900s. It was the centerpiece of a big farm property, a large mansion. But over time, they sold the tracts of land, and it got developed into what is now Beloit. And this house was kind of left on a small piece of land. And so, no one really wanted to live there, because it was a house surrounded by, Walmarts, Targets, things like that, commercial development, and this one weird house. So it couldn't serve as anybody's house anymore. So from the 1970s to the early 2000s, it was a bar and restaurant, but they had closed it down for several years. By the time I was there, it was very clearly abandoned when we were there. It was just kind of classic, scary, spooky. None of the lights worked. Things were just hanging off of the ceiling. Wallpaper was just drooping down. It was just, classic haunted place. If you imagine an empty haunted building, you probably imagine something like this. But it was really, I didn't know what to expect, because I'd never been ghost hunting before, and I had never heard of this place before. So we show up at this big white house that really does look like the White House. It was very styled like the actual White House. And we just got to exploring. It had all been reestablished as a restaurant. So the first floor and second floor were just wide open rooms. And all of the furniture had been taken out, so it was just empty, dark, empty space, which meant you could hear a lot. You could hear a lot, and you could see a lot. So what we did is we posted up on the main sort of grand staircase of the building, so you could see and hear essentially the entire building from that perspective. You could see both floors, you could hear both floors, and that was pretty much it. So we set up right there. And the team started doing an EVP session, which to me was just absurd, but I decided to go with it, and that never really goes away. It's asking questions out to what seems like nothing and hope for that nothing to answer you. But what I didn't know at the time is that sometimes the nothing does answer. And they got to talking and communicating, and they gave me a sort of bionic ear sort of situation, a microphone that you stick in your ear to potentially hear the voices in real time. And for a while there, I wasn't really hearing much of anything. But as they were going on, asking their question after question after question, I started to hear something in the background of this microphone. And as they kept going on, it kept getting louder, but I was trying to hear what it was saying, but I couldn't figure it out. And that's because it wasn't just one person saying something. As it materialized, it started to become a kind of cacophony of overlapping voices, background sounds. It was like a restaurant full of people was all around us. And I took out the microphone, you couldn't hear any of it, but you put it in your ear and you can hear the overlapping voices and the sort of chairs moving, glasses clinking, all that stuff. Just this sort of sound environment that's impossible to pick anything out of, but so much is happening. And after that night, we went back to that building 6 more times. Before they ultimately tore it down, with the last one being the night before they tore it down. And it never ceased to amaze. And so I really thank the manor for introducing me to the paranormal in such a memorable way. Because if it had been a quiet night, I don't know if I would have gotten as interested as I did, or if all of our visits after that had been quiet nights, I might not have been very interested. But there was no night that was quiet at the manor. And nowadays the whole property is like a bank or something. They flattened the whole thing and built something new. And I like to say that it's probably the most haunted bank in Wisconsin now, because you can take out the haunted place, you can pulverize it down to nothing, but where do the spooky stories go? Where do the bumps in the night go? Quite possibly nowhere. So I'm just waiting to hear from the folks at that bank. Like, can you come down? We have some weird activity going on. We're not sure where it's coming from. I could probably tell you where it's coming from.
I'm listening here from an outsider's perspective of listening to you kind of, reminisce about this. The paranormal world does seem very, odd from the outsider perspective.
Yeah.
I sat in this dark room asking nothing to respond to us, and I'm like, yeah, that's about it. Yeah. People walk in and see you doing that and go, what the hell's wrong with this guy?
Yep. But you never know what you might find, and you never know what answer you might get from any question. The only sure way to not get an answer to a question is to not ask it. And so even if you think there's nothing there, it's still worth a question, because something might be.
Absolutely. Lee Warner, one of our very popular guests here, has asked to have you prove that you're a Wisconsinite, and would like to know what the thing is that you drink water out of in public.
Well, that's a bubbler, of course. The major product of Kohler, Wisconsin, the place where it was invented, of course.
Uh-huh. I didn't read the initial question, but I kept the geyser and Sprout Spring, and I'm like, I don't know what the heck's going on over here. I'm like, oh, no, all right. We'll play. We'll indulge you today, Lee. There we go.
Yeah. Happy to prove my Wisconsin hood.
That's right. Oh my gosh. All right. So that is really cool. I've never heard of that place. Obviously it's torn down now, but that's unfortunate. And I think that you're right. Like, a lot of times people don't realize that just because some building is there now, like, again, why would a bank be haunted? Who died in a bank? Well,
exactly.
It's the whole history that came before that. So,
it's not about the building, it's about the land. And there's no real telling what was there before what's there now. So it's always interesting when that stuff comes up. And, nobody really knew about the manor when it was still existent either. And when it disappeared, when they tore it down, pretty much all the ghost stories about it disappeared too. And that was sort of a underlying thought that got me interested in doing the kind of work I do for Haunted US now, is that, you know, even if these places go away, which for haunted locations is always a possibility, pretty much, I want to be able to make sure that the ghost stories and the memory of that place sticks around, because there are plenty of places like the Manor that were very local. The people who were interested in ghosts in their towns knew of this place, but, you know, other than that, once it disappears, it's gone. So I wanted to do my part to change that.
Well, let me ask you this. I've worked 2 cases that are very similar to the style of what you're describing. You know, you go in there and it's just like a ballroom or a bar restaurant kind of situation. And the spirits are constantly talking, just like having a huge party. But we didn't get very many like one-on-one reactions of like yes, no answers to our questions. Were you able to get anything from the spirits there, or was it just kind of you knew stuff was there, but it wasn't communicating directly?
You know, that particular night, I don't think we got very much that could be considered intelligent per se. A lot of it seemed residual, but the Manor as a whole was a treasure trove of kind of the gray area between those things. And I'm thinking back to all of the EVPs that the group I started out with collected there. And so many felt thematically relevant to the questions we were asking, but none really responded directly. And a good example was, I remember one of the lead investigators on that team asked out into the big empty nothing, who died? Very, very simple question, but you never know what answer might come out of a question like that. Who died? And the potential EVP that they captured in the seconds after that was just a whispering voice saying, never finding out. Is that residual, or is that a response to the question? I don't really know. And there were so many like that, where it's just kind of like, it seems like a response, but nobody's ever just going to sit down and say, yes, no, yes, definitely, never. Just, it would be great if we could interview ghosts like that, but it's difficult. So the Manor was probably a lot of residual activity, I would say. But I would bet there's at least something intelligent in there. And, when you get into big places like that are meant to house hundreds of people or thousands of people at a time, I think you're ultimately going to end up with a lot of residual energy more than anything else. Because really, if one person has an impactful experience in that place, that might make the difference. But if one person has a remarkable experience in a ballroom or a restaurant or a popular bar, well, there's also hundreds, thousands of people having regular experiences there all the time, every day. And I think, the energy sort of stacks up, so that really what you're going to end up getting are the overlapping voices, the sounds of the past, more so than a ghost you can sit down and interview.
It's in Beloit, correct?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Catch it. What city was the Manor in? Beloit?
Yep. Beloit.
Cool. Well, you've traveled all over the United States. You have a new haunted locations every Thursday on hauntedus.com. It's hard to not put the A in there. I don't know.
Well, I think if you type in hauntedUSA.com, you still get to Haunted US. I'm pretty sure we own both of those. So
awesome.
Either one should work. But new haunted places every Thursday. 52 new haunted places every year, pretty much without exception. So there's always something new to read about and to learn about. It's just a question of where's it going to be on every Thursday. I know today's was in Pennsylvania. We had a few in recent weeks in Oregon and Nevada. I think we had one in Minnesota come out recently. So it's always a mystery from the outside what location's going to be next. But every Thursday, right around noon Central, is usually when they come out.
Very cool. Very cool. Have you traveled to a lot of those locations, or do you just research them? And what percentage have you actually been to for all of them?
I would say Slight majority, probably 60% of them, 70% of them I've been to. We try to get out, either myself or the site's founder, Brandon. We try to get out to every single one of them before we get the information out there, because it's remarkable the difference that it makes. Actually going to a place, visiting, seeing it, talking to the people who work there, own it. You get so much more to share on our site. We get better photos, obviously, we get great information, and you get the stories that you're just not going to find anyplace else. So anytime we can get out there and actually see these places, we do, either the two of us or one or the other. So overlapping, I think we've gotten to just about all of them.
Very cool. That's awesome. So it looked also like you do some like public events as well. Like some of these locations, you actually get to go out and investigate with yourself and the Haunted US people.
Yeah, our itinerary doesn't often allow for full investigations. 8 hours in one place, but we do love to get out and do that. Obviously, our interest is ghosts and hauntings, and paranormal investigation itself is a huge part of that. So whenever we can get out and actually investigate, we make time for that in our schedule. And we have team members in other areas of the country that we usually like to connect with, and find an area between us and say, we're going to investigate this area, we're going to investigate this building, kind of together as a sort of team building exercise for folks who are otherwise kind of far flung through the country. So I think the most recent one we did was Pythian Castle down in Missouri. We stopped and did a full evening of investigating there. During a much larger trip, I think we stopped at 25 places total that trip, but we only investigated Pythian Castle.
I see you also been down to one of your Thursday locations, I think it was the Lemp Brewery down in Missouri.
Yep. I think it's just the mansion that we have right now, but I know there are claims in both the mansion and the brewery. So, but yeah, the whole Lemp kind of property, because I know they have the mansion, and then what's around there now was essentially the Lemp property, all those blocks around it. So essentially the mansion is definitely a spooky spot, but really the whole neighborhood around it is steeped with Lemp lore.
Very cool. And we were talking before the show about a haunted house that I owned and operated and stuff, and so I used to go down to St. Louis for the big haunted house convention, which ironically is this weekend, I think. But one of the places was the Lemp Brewery that had the haunted house in it, and then they did like the tours and stuff of it. So I never got to go there, but it was always on the list of stuff to do that weekend. So
it's an interesting spot for sure.
I bet. So tell me about another location that you've actually investigated, one of like the lesser known ones, because everybody, there's places everybody's heard of, but where have you got to investigate that maybe, like the Beloit location? Where else has been somewhere that you really, really had a good time and not many people have heard of?
Yeah. So a place that not many people have probably heard of that we had a great time investigating was the Kewaunee County Jail in Kewaunee, Wisconsin, which is not far from your area of the state. It's up in the northeastern area, kind of at the base of the little peninsula. But what interested me about the Kewaunee Jail is that I had heard about it a lot in the mid-2010s. But at that time, I was living in Ohio, so I wasn't exactly in a place to investigate it. But I had just heard about little whispers here and there, mentions of people going there to investigate. But by the time I moved back to Wisconsin, they had changed their tune completely. This was around 2018, and they shut their doors to all things spooky. So I thought, darn, guess that was a missed opportunity. And a few years went by. I started working with Haunted US, and the site got going. And I decided that, if we're not going to reach out for just an opportunity to ghost hunt, maybe I'll reach out to the museum and see if they're interested in an article, see if they're interested in us just talking about their ghost stories and publicizing them, see if they would be interested in that. And the proprietor there, who we spoke with, Brian, he loved the idea immediately, but it took a lot of advocacy to the Historical Society board to kind of change that tune, because it was ultimately the society that decided, we really don't want to explore this side of our history anymore. So he took our concept to them. They sort of gave a cautious, sure, we'll give it a go. And we sort of worked with Brian and parlayed that into an actual investigation of this building that hadn't been investigated in 6 or 7 years. And so we stopped up there, and it's, when you think jail, you probably think large building, but this is a very, very small local jail. I want to say there were like a dozen cells total, and the sheriff's house on the front, which is a little architectural quirk you'll find a lot in Indiana's haunted jails, but you find them every once in a while throughout the Midwest, that a sheriff had the dubious distinction of living with all of the people he locked up. But this little house, little jail, was essentially the whole structure. And it's all a big museum now. It's full of exhibits, but it's still very, very obviously jail. You can't really take the jail vibe out of a place once you build it like that. And so we got in, met Brian. He took us through and showed us around. And then we got to investigating. And, it started out pretty quiet, but then we started to, hear things and get little kind of touches and brushes by us. And as we went on, sort of very similar to what happened at the manor, just minus the microphones, sounds around us just started developing. We could hear things with our own 2 ears. And when we were upstairs in the sheriff's house section, we actually heard a disembodied voice respond to a question in real time. Like we heard it, this very, very faint response to one of our questions. And we actually caught it on our recorders. So we captured a potential EVP, and we actually heard it with our ears, which is very rare in the field in general, for sure, but very rare for us. And after that, obviously, we had a great time doing that. We had a fantastic experience, and importantly, Brian had a fantastic time investigating with us. And the Historical Society thought very highly of the work we produced at the end, and they, I think, in April of last year, they used that as basically their jumping off point to restart paranormal investigations. So nowadays, you can go and you can book a ghost tour or ghost hunt at the Kewaunee County Jail Museum. And the experience of investigating there was great, but being able to have played a role in them reopening their doors to ghost hunters is fantastic. And, after being out of the scene for a good few years, they're still establishing their name again in the field. So folks are kind of learning about them for the first time. And so if you're looking for a place, particularly in Wisconsin, where you might want to explore some newfangled haunted location, so to speak, I would say try out the Kewaunee County Jail Museum.
Very cool. It sounds very much like the Waushara County Jail with the attached sheriff's house and then the back. We've got to investigate that one.
Yeah, it is. It's a little smaller than that, a little more compact, but it's roughly the same idea.
Very cool. Yeah, we actually got an EVP that we heard out loud at that location. So that's why I'm like, that's not the same jail though. No, that's cool.
No. But they might have been designed by the same architect, because they look kind of similar. One's just a little smaller.
Interesting. Awesome. Very cool. Well, you have done so much research in Wisconsin that you've actually written your first book through Haunted US, 30 Haunted Nights in Wisconsin. Tell us all about that.
Yeah. So a travel guidebook was sort of the next natural step for both me and Brandon as we got our footing in the website and started getting a lot of articles published. We thought, what should we do next? And we got our podcast going through another group of folks, Haunted Atlas, and that was sort of our first big step outside of just articles. but it's really another podcast specialty team handling that, and we just kind of advise. So we wanted something a little more active that takes the Haunted US project to another level. And so a travel guidebook was definitely on our minds, and Wisconsin was an easy choice because I'm in Wisconsin and so is Brandon. He's in Milwaukee. So it was just, we know a lot of Wisconsin stories, we know a lot of Wisconsin lore, and we're here. So first state to start off our travel guidebooks, might as well make it America's Dairyland. So we set out through spring, summer, and fall, winter of 2024, traveling all through the state, getting 30 separate haunted places. Thus the name. We did, deep dive research and review of each location, sort of very similar to the articles. It's a very, very detailed informational book. You're not going to find any of the 30 haunted nights that's lacking in either historic information or ghost stories. But along with that, we wanted to add a little bit more to the experience. So if someone was actually using this book to travel through Wisconsin and find, spooky things here or there, they might, want to see other things. They might want to see haunted roads. They might want to see one-of-a-kind roadside attractions. And so we integrated into all of our sections in this book. All of the geographic sections have entries at the end that we call oddities. And they're things like the haunted roads, things like roadside giants and statues, one-of-a-kind memorials and parklands, and the sort of stuff that a ghost hunter taking a road trip through Wisconsin would just love to see. So we packed it with just everything that we would like to see in a book. And I think a lot of things that a lot of other people are happy to see, because we've gotten a great response so far. And, it's great to be able to share our travels with other people and to help inform their travels too.
Very cool. It looks like the cover is the Red Bridge.
Actually, that is the Weary Road Bridge.
Okay.
But we found a surprising number of haunted bridge stories. So there are a few in here. So if anyone out there is a connoisseur of haunted roadways, spooky bridges, we've got a fair share in there.
Very cool. And there's definitely a lot of weird roadside attractions and stuff here in Wisconsin.
Yes, there are.
Have you one of my kind of Wisconsin bucket list kind of things is the House on the Rock.
Yeah,
I think that place would be an amazing haunted location to go and check out. Have you done any work with them?
So it's included in the book as an oddity, because we went in and did a tour, but they are another location that, as spooky as it could possibly be, they don't really interact with their ghost stories. There's so much weirdness there as it is. I don't think they're wanting for any strange stories. So if they ever are, the ghost potential is certainly there, but and we will certainly be there to answer their call if they ever do that. But we featured it as a sort of roadside extra stop because it is definitely a one-of-a-kind Wisconsin location. But it's not one of the 30 haunted nights simply because they don't really jive with their stories yet.
Absolutely. I have heard 2 haunted stories out of there. So that's a start. But
yes,
apparently his glass, Alex, I can't think of his name, Alex, the guy that built the House on the Rock, his glass of whatever he was drinking when he passed away is still in the house, like still sitting on the shelf. And there's a doll in one of the downtown scene that kept moving, so they had to lock it up in a glass case. I do know that there is haunted stories from that building, but again, just like you, I mean, like I've reached out to them and we have not gotten a green light to go in and investigate it yet, but be there. I'll let you know if I get in. You can come with us.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned this briefly. I want to come back to this as well. You guys have a podcast as well that your Haunted US runs. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it's called Haunted Atlas, and they are producing their second season right now. There's a full season out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple. We have episodes on YouTube. And it really just kind of takes the Haunted US spirit and confers it to audio. It's sort of like an audiobook version of our articles. And it's two hosts. We have Erica and Sarah, who one comes in with knowledgeable of all the history of a particular place and sort of tells the story to the other one. So you get the inside perspective of the tale and sort of the outside perspective who gets to, learn it for the first time and react. And so it's definitely an enjoyable listen. I think our most recent episode actually is the Kewaunee County Jail Museum. So if you want an inside scoop, more information about the jail up in Kewaunee, you can definitely tune into that episode. It's a great sort of encapsulation of everything that the team there does and does very well.
Very cool. I think I have actually listened to your show a couple times. So that's
fabulous.
Awesome. Well, we are live, guys. If you have any questions about any haunted locations, especially in Wisconsin or anywhere around the U.S. for Mitch, throw them in the comments section. We'll get to them. Lee was wondering if Kohler, Wisconsin is haunted. Anything in Kohler?
I don't have anything off the top of my head, but I'm certain with enough research, I could probably uncover something. But yeah, I know a lot. There's a lot in Wisconsin. I just don't know anything off the top of my head in Kohler. But just another fun factoid about Kohler is that's where the bubbler comes from. It's where the Kohler Plumbing Company is. And it's the one place, probably any place in the U.S. where you're likely to hear it called a bubbler. Basically everywhere else is drinking fountain, water fountain. But no, in Kohler, it's still the classic bubbler.
That's because everywhere else is wrong. But anyway. All right. Well, where else have you gone around the U.S. that you have enjoyed investigating? Someplace else that's not, the norm?
Yeah. Gosh. So around the U.S., I would say Goldfield Hotel in Nevada is always a fascinating stop. You can't really ghost hunt there anymore, but it's not very publicized, but you can tour it. You have to contact, I think, basically the city of Goldfield, which is a very, very tiny town in Nevada. And they, I think, are the folks who ultimately let you in and allow you to tour and explore this historic hotel. But it's like I said, not very publicized that you can actually still get in there and do anything. So people, of course, remember it from the original Ghost Adventures documentary. 2005 era, Zach, Nick, and Aaron were exploring there, seeing bricks get thrown across rooms. And it sort of solidified its position in the paranormal field, but it's been closed to investigations for a very long time. And most people just kind of assume these days that it's closed, but you can actually take a day tour of it if you just contact some city person, which most of the time, I don't know about you, it depends on the location, where I'm kind of like, I don't know if these people are going to be receptive to a ghost story. Like, I don't ever want to pick up and call a restaurant that's active and ask them about their ghost story, because you're going to get the hostess who's trying to book reservations. They don't want to talk to you about their ghost stories. And I don't usually like contacting cities either, because it's, you're going to get the city clerk on the phone. You're like, I don't know. Why are you asking me about ghost stories? But, Goldfield is like I said, a very, very small community, and they are interested in anything that, gets their name out there, that lets people know that they're out there in the Nevada desert. So if you're out there in the Nevada desert, maybe hit up the city of Goldfield and see if you can get a tour.
I noticed a lot of lighthouses and jails and hotels on your list. It seems like these are very common tropes. Do you have any thoughts on why are lighthouses and jails and hotels always haunted?
Well, I think jails and hotels come down to the people that come through them. Hotels they see untold numbers of people in their operational life. That's basically their whole purpose, is to be a home away from home. So I think a lot of that comes down to just the number of people who pass through hotels. And something a lot of hotel operators don't want you to know is the number of people who die in hotels. It is significant. And jails are kind of like hotels, but you don't leave. You live a huge portion of your entire life, a huge memorable portion of your entire life in this place. And once again, a lot of people die in those walls. And I think that has a huge role in that. Now, lighthouses, fewer people have ever meaningfully stayed at a lighthouse. Lighthouse keepers were known to be weird because they stayed by themselves in these buildings for long periods of time, and that was basically it. It's not a kind of place where a lot of people would be, and it's not really a place that people seem to like to be. Back in the day when you had to tend a lighthouse, it seemed like a very crappy job. But they also played an incredibly important role. Without them, ships crashed. And there's one that we just recently featured, Split Rock Lighthouse up in Minnesota, essentially served that role because a company got sick of losing their ships. U.S. Steel, very, very famous steel company that's now almost nothing, but they were essentially the biggest company in the United States of America in the early 1900s. And they had just bought a fleet of brand new steamships, and they filled them full of steel, and they sent them to Duluth, which, if you've never sailed into Duluth, which I imagine many people haven't, it is very, it's a thin, rocky channel that takes you into Duluth. And they sent their ships full of steel into Duluth, and I think 8 of them sank on the rocks, and not one of them was insured. They were too new to have insurance on them. So U.S. Steel ate the cost of these brand new ships that are still at the bottom of Lake Superior. And so they contacted essentially the federal government. They wagged their fist at Congress, and they said, put something here so we're not going to lose another ship to these rocks. And so they hastily built Split Rock Lighthouse, and it fixed the problem. No ship really ran into those rocks. But what's missing in that story is that there were people on those ships that sank. They hit the rocks. They foundered in a massive storm. Dozens of people lost. And it's like that anytime you see a lighthouse. A lighthouse isn't put in a place just for the fun of it. It's the state, the federal government paid money to put that building there. And there's a distinct reason why that is. People died when it wasn't there. And so I think that's, for lighthouses, how it ends up being so, and it ends up having them be a haunted hotspot, is because they are there to prevent people dying. And it's interesting to consider it now because we use GPS to avoid things like that. We don't really need lights on the shores, but 120, 140 years ago, if the lights on the shore weren't there, you didn't know where the shore was at night. And there was no telling what was going to be out in the water in front of you. And if you hit a rock out in the middle of dark water, that was pretty much it for your existence. And so seeing a lighthouse as a old world sailor was seeing continued life. It was seeing safety. And so you weren't actually there in the lighthouse, but it was playing a huge role in your life and your safety and your work.
That is a absolutely amazing thought there. We've talked about haunted lighthouses in Florida and stuff with guests and that before, and we've never put it to the fact that, like you said, before the lighthouse was there, people died there.
Yep.
And that's why the lighthouse is there. And that goes back to, again, talking about the Beloit location and stuff of, well, nowadays it's something else. It's a lighthouse, but what happened before that caused all this?
Yes. And sometimes literally nothing happened on that piece of land, but that's the reason because there needed to be something happening on that piece of land. There needed to be a light tower on that piece of land, telling ships to stay away from the shore in that area. And even in times when before the building that's haunted was there, literally nothing happened. It's the nothing that happened that caused so much stuff offshore to happen. It's caused so much death, essentially, to happen a few miles or even a few hundred yards offshore. And where's a spirit who goes down on a ship a mile offshore supposed to go? Well, there's a big bright light on the shore. Maybe go there.
Go towards the light.
Yes.
Oh my. Yeah, we had a while back. We had the late Chitan Noir was on the show talking about all ghost ships of the Great Lakes and all the crashes and stuff that have happened on the lakes here around Wisconsin and the area, and that it's just insane the amount of ships at the bottom of the ocean they're not ocean, the Great Lakes, yeah.
And it's a big question. There's so much on land that's got paranormal claims, and it also often has to do with massive amounts of death. But where also have massive amounts of death, shipwrecks. And if it's 100 yards or 10 miles below the ocean, wherever it is, it does beg the question: is there anything down there? Are those ships sitting at the bottom of the sea or the bottom of the Great Lakes active? And is anybody ever going to try and record that?
There's a underwater paranormal investigation. There's something for somebody to do. I know that you have the USS Wisconsin is one of your topics on your page as well.
Yeah, I liked writing about that place because it's the USS Wisconsin, but also it's not in Wisconsin, which only makes sense because trying to get a battleship into the Great Lakes just has to be fun. So anytime you're going to find an old warship, it's going to be out on the oceanic shores. But yeah, I liked writing about USS Wisconsin because I like writing about anything Wisconsin. But yeah, very, very much not in the state of Wisconsin.
Awesome. Have you got a haunted submarine stories as well?
I know we do. I don't think we have any published right now. Submarines are interesting because obviously they're so much more cramped than a ship is. And if you've never been on a big ship, it's easy to not think about how cramped the spaces are. The hallways are thinner, the doorways are thinner, the rooms are tighter, and the ceilings are lower because it's a vehicle. You have to maximize space. And in a submarine, all of that is like 10 times worse. It is so tiny. It is so compact, but it is also so echoey in a submarine. You could drop a pin and someone across the entire submarine would hear it. And so it's an interesting challenge to research those sorts of places. But I know a few reports do exist, and the one that I am thinking of right now is, I forget the submarine's name, but right next to the Queen Mary ship in California, there is an old submarine sitting in the water beside it that was an accessible museum for a while and got a lot of claims from tourists, but I think it started to flood, so they don't let people in there anymore. Yeah, submarines kind of weird me out. I don't think boats should be underwater, but that's the bad place for them. And I'm not easily claustrophobic, but some spaces in submarines can get kind of tight. But if there ever is a submarine museum that is still accessible and has ghost stories, claustrophobia be damned, we're definitely going to be there. And it's definitely going to find its way onto our site. But claims in submarines are kind of difficult to research because of the structure of submarines. And you'd be surprised how few submarine museums or accessible submarines exist, simply because exactly what happened to the one in Queen Mary, or the one by Queen Mary, is they just start to degrade and they start taking on water, and it becomes impossible to manage them in any accessible way.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that's listening, especially Lee, she's my fact checker, basically. But it's either Manitowoc or Sheboygan has a submarine at their museum. And I've heard that you could go in there and do paranormal investigations.
Well, there you go. That's worth looking into.
I'm not
Definitely.
sure. I want to say it's Manitowoc, but I'm not sure. It's over on the coast. There we go. The U505 exhibit at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago is amazing. That was the other one I was going to bring up. I didn't go in it, but I got to see it from the outside. So.
Yeah, U-boats. U-boats are fascinating because they are a submarine, but they operated very differently. They operated a lot better, and the fact that any of them have survived is fascinating. So yeah, any place with a submarine is a place I'm interested in learning more about. And if there is ever a submarine or a U-boat that can be explored, we will certainly be there. So I'll have to look into 505 for sure.
I'm not sure if they'd let you do a paranormal investigation of that one, but they could try. That'd be pretty cool. I got to see it on the outside. I didn't want to pay the extra fee to go in it. So
that's how they get you.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need to see it that bad. I can see the outside. So, but that was really cool. Yeah. So we are. There we go. Thank you, Lee. I knew she'd get there. It is the Maritime Museum in Manitowoc, the USS Cobia.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up. I do know it's not a submarine. I do know of a few whispers of tales of hauntings aboard the SS Meteor up in Superior, Wisconsin. And we featured that in 30 Haunted Nights in Wisconsin as an oddity. We feature Fairlawn Mansion, also up in Superior, as one of the actual 30 haunted places. But right across the street, basically, is this wharf where you can go see the SS Meteor. And so we included it as an interesting site that also has some whispers of ghost stories aboard. And it's not a submarine, but it might as well be, because it's what's called a whaleback steamship. And if you would look it up, it does look a lot like it looks like a submarine with a superstructure, like the big kind of building that goes on top of freighters. It's like a submarine with a building on top, essentially. And how they used to operate is you would fill it full of your freight, whatever you were putting in it, and the whole ship would be weighed down so much, the entire length of the ship would go underwater, and only that little building that you see on top would stick out. And so it would sail, and it wouldn't have very much air drag because everything was underwater. And it could get below very low bridges because it sat essentially on the water line is where it sat. And they had their purposes for a while, but this is the only one of them left to see anywhere. And it's sort of a fascinating, almost submarine that has its share of ghost stories, and you can get on there and tour it, and it's very interesting.
I think we have struck a hot spot with our audience here on these subs, because now all of a sudden we got all kinds of stuff. There's also a German U-boat sunken in Lake Michigan. The UC-97 is off Highland Park. It was sunk on June 4th, 1921 by the 4-inch guns of the USS Wilmette? After being towed out there for target practice by the USS Hawk.
Yeah, as soon as I heard U-boat on Lake Michigan, I was like, it has to be either target practice or they were reefing. They were just turning it into an artificial reef. Yeah. But yeah, that makes all the sense in the world, because people think of U-boats as a World War II thing. They were definitely a World War I thing too. And when Germany lost World War I, they had to give up every piece of military might they had, every bullet, everything. So every U-boat they had to go elsewhere. And so I guess at least one of them ended up at the bottom of our Great Lakes.
And then going back to the Maritime Museum in Manitowoc, Lee says you can spend the night on it. It is a sub B&B on the website.
Love it. Have to book a night at there for sure.
Definitely. I knew I could get you in your, the overcome the small amount of claustrophobia and get you on there. Oh, you don't want to go to sub? Yeah, here's a sub for you. There
Yes.
Anything to help out. That's what I'm here for. Well, we are coming up here on the end of the hour, so if you guys have any more questions about submarines or any other factoids that we want to share, Lisa's up to 65 people, so you can bring some friends. There you go. But if you guys have any other questions or comments, throw them in the comments section. Carl says the USS Wilmette was a refitting effort by the Navy of the U.S. of the
SS Eastland.
Oh, Jesus. Which capsized on the Chicago River July 24th, 1915, killing 845 people. Now the Eastland is one that I actually am familiar with. So
yes, I'm also very familiar with that story. And I guess I'll leave you with a fun little, well, not fun. I guess I'll leave you with an Eastland factoid that a major reason it capsized and all those people died is they had to shoehorn on more lifeboats onto the top of it after the Titanic sunk. After the Titanic sunk, the government said every ship has to have enough lifeboats for everyone. And the Eastland was already top heavy. So they stacked it full of extra lifeboats, and that was all it took for it to just fall right over.
Oh my God, that's great. We got to investigate the Cicero Church down in, outside of Illinois. And as you said, when you're looking into these locations, it's so fascinating to go through and learn the history of all that. And it's amazing because, the whole history of this church was the church was expanded and built and became prosperous because it had to take all the victims of the Eastland. So all the money of the death of the Eastland went to this church, and that's where it became so big and popular. So
fascinating.
So that's why I know about the Eastland. There you go. Oops, not that one. This one. Carl's up says, I am an Eastland expert as my grandparents both survived. Wow, that's awesome.
Good on them.
Yeah, very cool. As it is tradition on this show, if your pet shows up on the show, you must introduce them. So
yes.
Let's tell us your kitty.
Yes, this is Susu. She is a very patient cat, but she's also a very tired cat, and so she likes to sleep on my shoulder.
Cool. Carl's up says he also runs the Eastland Memorial Society. That's awesome. Very
wonderful
cool show.
I know they've got a big old plaque out there where on the old site where it sunk. So it's good to see that folks are still minding the history and keeping important stories alive.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I didn't get to. I wanted to go get pictures and stuff of the location where it sank and stuff for the episode we did, but I didn't get down there in time for it. So very cool. Very cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for all the comments and stuff. That's fascinating. So let's see what else we got. My grandfather was wearing an Uncle Sam suit that saved his life. Yep, I was part of that plaque.
Nice.
There you go. Very cool. Awesome, man. All right, Mitch. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Is there anything else? Tell people again. We got all kinds of stuff here. Let me back up here a bit here. Not that far. You got 30 Haunted Nights in Wisconsin, your premier book here out of the Haunted US group on the website. The links for the book and the website are in the show notes, as well as you have the Haunted Atlas podcast from hauntedus.com as well. And every Thursday, brand new haunted locations on your social media and Facebook and websites, I assume, as well. So what else do you want to tell people? Where else can they find you? Anything else coming up, events or anything? Can we go out and investigate with you?
No public investigations coming up immediately right now, though we've got some planned out later in the year. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the classic social medias we're around and active on. You can also see us at CapCon coming up in May. We'll be at CapCon. You can pick up a copy of 30 Haunted Nights in Wisconsin, learn more about Haunted US, and see all the other great vendors that they've got at CapCon. Other than that, we have a busy travel itinerary coming up, just collecting information and photos for our site. getting the 52 locations that we need for the year this year. But we'll be staying close and keeping an eye on Paracons, particularly in Wisconsin, as they come up, and booking them where they're available. So we are not going to be able to make it to DeKalb, unfortunately, but DeKalb's a great place. I'm sure they're going to run a great Paracon. And if you're interested in finding out more about DeKalb's premier haunted theater, the Egyptian Theater, you can find a great article about it on hauntedus.com.
Very cool. I've heard quite a bit about that as well lately in my travels. So very cool, man. All right, guys. Well, we are coming up here. This is going to be it. So if you guys have any last minute questions, throw them in there. But otherwise, Mitch, what is your final thought? What do you want to leave people with all of your exploration of the U.S. and all your adventures and cool locations in history? What is one thing that you want to leave people with today?
Well, I sort of mentioned it earlier, but it's definitely worth restating that whether you're talking to ghosts or you're talking to the proprietors of haunted places, you never know if you don't ask. We've been shocked by responses that we get on recordings to the questions we ask spirits, but even more than that, Haunted US is often surprised by the reaction and interest and passion that we get from the people who own and operate potentially haunted places, even if you don't think they're going to be into their ghost stories, even if you think they're going to tell you to kick rocks, you never know what they might say, and you never know the opportunity that might bring you. So you never know if you don't ask, is what I'll leave you with.
Very good advice, man. Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on today. I look forward to having you at CapCon. I look forward to checking out your book and seeing you again. So thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
All right. You have a great day. Talk to you later.
Yeah, bye.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. We are super excited. Coming up next week, we have the one and only Pete Kelsey coming on the show. He has been featured on Wisconsin, on Expedition Bigfoot, as well as The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. So come prepared with all of your wonderful LiDAR and scanning questions, technology and stuff, and all of the things that he's not going to answer, because if you ask him what's coming up on the next season, you know the answer to that. So with that being said, hopefully you guys can all tune in and check out next week's show live with Pete Kelsey. Until next time, guys, remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. Take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.
You seem to know